All right. Ready for your story? The Journey to the Littlest Princess by the Mass Family. Once upon a time, there were two young princesses named Peyton and Mackenzie. These princesses grew up in a castle in the land of canyons near the village of Santa Clarita. Long ago, this land had been cursed by a witch who made the land dry and desolate where nothing could grow or flourish. There were no rivers or lakes or flowers or grass or even trees. There were only empty canyons as far as the eye could see. But, unbeknown to the witch, the castle where the princesses grew up was no ordinary castle. It had 3 towers that were made from magic. Legend has it that once there was a princess in each tower, the magic of the towers would be unlocked. Peyton and Mackenzie dreamed of the day that they could find a third princess to unlock the magic and save their dying land. Who's going to be in here? There's a few special dates here, too, when you became alone. 10-10. Peyton. Peyton was the oldest princess. She was brave, fearless, and full of energy. She was always on the move and loved to learn and try new things. Mackenzie was the youngest princess who was cautious, snuggly, and very independent. She loved to play on her own and use her imagination. One day, while the girls were out playing, they found something odd. It was a long stick with something in the middle. When they cleaned it off, they could only make out 2 pink lines. They did not know what this meant, so they took it to their mom and dad, the king and queen. The queen, who was the most beautiful, caring, loving, and amazing queen who had ever lived, looked at the stick and rubbed the 2 pink lines. Suddenly, a secret message appeared. It said, "The littlest princess in all the lands is waiting to be rescued. She's locked away in Huntington Castle. But beware, whoever tries to save the princess will be met with danger." The message did not scare the queen or the princesses. Huntington Castle was on the other side of their kingdom, but they knew that they had to rescue the little princess and bring her back to their castle where she truly belonged. So the queen and her girls set out on a journey to save the littlest princess, while the king stayed behind and protected their lands. When the queen and princesses left the castle, they came to the land of the canyons. There were many hills and ravines, and it was hard for the queen to know which direction to go. Princess Peyton, being the adventurer she was, had walked these lands many times. She guided the queen and her sister through the lands until they finally reached the maze of roads. The maze of roads went in every direction. The queen didn't know how to get through the maze or which road to take. She asked Princess Peyton for help, but the princess had never explored this far and did not know which way to go. Princess Mackenzie heard the queen and Princess Peyton talking, and she knew a way that she could help. For she loved to build things out of Legos, and she had packed all the Legos she had in her backpack. She was such an expert builder that she quickly built a hot air balloon that was big enough to fit them all inside. The queen and the princess were able to sail through the air across the maze of roads to the other side of the kingdom. 9-3, Princess Mackenzie is born. They had finally made it to Huntington Castle, where the littlest princess was waiting to be rescued. That's my best story.
That's pretty good.
The castle was big and scary, but the queen and the princess knew the littlest princess was inside, so they burst open the castle doors and started to call for her. But the noise awoke the blood pressure monsters that protected the castle. The small little BP monsters quickly surrounded the queen and her daughters. They knew that the queen had come for the littlest princess, so they captured the queen and her 2 princesses and locked them in the highest tower called the ICU dungeon. The girls were trapped and didn't know what to do. Just then they heard a knock at the window. It was the king.
Yay.
The king had secretly been following the girls on their journey to protect them in case anything should happen. He had quickly learned about the BP monsters and found a way to get past them. The king learned that if there were too many, they would be restless and roam the castle constantly. And if there were too little, then they would become angry and dangerous. But if there was the right amount, usually about 120 of them, then the monsters would be content and fall asleep. Is that about the right blood pressure that you want to be at? So on his way to save the family, the king managed to get just the right amount of BP monsters in the castle. The monsters had fallen asleep, and he was able to rescue the queen and daughters and finally bring them to the room that they believed the littlest princess was in. But just as they were about to open the door, a giant snake slithered from behind the wall.
Oh, no.
He showed his giant fangs and said, My name is Sepsis the Serpent, and the princess behind this door is mine. Leave now or face my wrath. The family had come this far for the Littlest Princess, and they weren't going to give up now. They knew she belonged with them in their castle, so all at once they attacked Sepsis. But the snake was quick and used his long tail to wrap up the queen. He captured her and said that if the king and his daughter did not leave, he would squeeze the queen until she could no longer breathe.
Oh, jeez.
The king didn't know what to do. He couldn't lose his queen, but he could not leave the Littlest Princess. Just as he was thinking, a band of heroic nurses came to the rescue. These nurses roamed the lands, pledging to help those in need. They had heard about the queen's journey to the Littlest Princess, and they rushed to Huntington Castle as soon as they could. They used their powers to subdue Sepsis the Serpent and locked him away so he could never hurt anyone again. After the king and queen thanked the band of nurses, they grabbed Princess Peyton and Princess Mackenzie, and all together they opened the door to finally meet the Littlest Princess. She was the sweetest thing they'd ever seen, and they instantly fell in love with her. They named the Littlest Princess Brooklyn, and after a long journey home, the king and queen finally laid her in her bed in her tower. When Princess Brooklyn, Princess Mackenzie, and Princess Peyton all lay down to fall asleep for the night, the magic of the towers was finally unlocked. Everything in the kingdom returned to its natural beauty with trees and grass and animals and rivers and lakes. The girls grew up as best friends, and they all lived happily ever after. Yeah. I love you. Story wasn't forgotten. We just had it finished.